You're sopping wet.
You noticed that?
You're sopping wet.
Oh, you noticed. Thank you.
Can we talk a little bit, since there were this is them and there was him and her, of the other movies that exist and which we'll see in a month, were there some parts of it when you saw them that you were like, oh, I wish they had this other scene from my character? Can you each say one example?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because, of course, I wanted everything in, which then doesn't make sense to even make the movie, them. But for me, the biggest sadness with combining them was the performances of the other actors. Like, Jess Weitzler is so incredible. Kieran Hines has...
I wanted so much more of him.
Yeah.
Don't they all, darling? Don't they all?
You guys,
He's sexy.
I have to tell you, it didn't matter what scene we were doing. This was what I was working with. And it was so great because I was never allowed to take anything too seriously. And it allowed for such a environment of creativity and imagination. And and some of the improv is actually in the movie where James is just going off and saying stuff, and I'm just looking at him and laughing, and then just saying, "You're so stupid." And that was part of our improv.
Yeah, Kieran Hines, I would say, is who I missed anyway. The relationship that my character had with him was so. For me, it was really beautiful. It was also the first thing I did in the movie. The first 4 days I had on the movie was Kieran and myself, and the day he left, he only had 4 days shooting, and the day he left, everybody was like, how can we carry on with this movie? The most charismatic sexual man in the world since Morgan Freeman has just left the shoot. So yeah, that was a shame. It's also, they're very different experiences. I mean, this is a straightforward, conventional telling of a couple going through a bereavement and going through a breakup and finding personal healing. The other two films are, as well as that, they are a closer examination of the two individuals in separation, but also they're sort of an experience in subjectivity and conflicting memory, and the masculine as opposed to the feminine, not just reaction to a situation, but how we remember a situation. So I won't tell you too much about the two different versions in case you see them, but for example, there's a moment in it, the moment where we discover that I have slept with somebody else. In the him movie, he fesses up to that. In the her movie, she guesses that. So it's just like things that how we remember things differently would probably cause arguments in the sequel when we're like, no, I remember that.
I knew it the whole time.
Not the others. I'm curious about. I talked to Melissa Leo before about, you have screen spouses, you have people that are, your husbands, and when you see them years later, do you kind of remember it differently, or do you have like a token that you take away from the set?
Do you have a token, James?
A napkin.
And I don't think I took a token from this film, except my everlasting friendship with Jessica.
I took a dress. And I took a dress. A couple actually. But more important was my everlasting friendship with Jim. Yeah.
I've got an actual semi-serious answer to that question as well. I do quite often take something from a set actually. I don't think I even thought about taking anything from this set. I think partly because this was one of the parts that I played that I think probably closest to me and who I am and the way I would react to a situation. I don't think I would try and suppress my feelings as much. Knowing myself, I'd probably cry a hell of a lot about it and want to talk everything out. I would be trying to fix things though. Other than that though, I think it is one of the parts that have been closest to me, and I don't feel like I needed a token to remember it, In terms of finding what you had to find, it was sort of for free, really.
I'd like to ask we were talking the other day about roles for women and leading roles for women, and this is an amazing leading role for female role. But we also talked about how you've done a lot of horror movies, and it seems like there are in fact a number of opportunities for women if they play the lead in a horror movie. We talked about Sissy Spacek and Nicole Kidman, Naomi Watts. And can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, actually, I think you were the one who, I didn't even realize it until I was talking to you, but I've done 2 horror films, both with Guillermo del Toro. Yes. And I just saw...
Oh, sorry, was that a name?
And I just saw a private screening of the last one, Crimson Peak, and what is so great about it is the female roles are fantastic. And usually in horror films, they're complex and they're also really strong women. They're not usually like the victim. Oh, it's okay. They're not really.
You just messed the wrong actor, lady.
I'm kind of not very good at this. I had it on 15 minutes, so then we could open it up to you. So that was what that was marking.
So horror films have great female characters.
This gentleman in the middle, behind the giant cameras, has the longest arm, so he gets
When you were working on this movie, this is the first time that you got to work with Jess Wexler, who you went to Juilliard with, and you were reunited with Viola Davis, who also went to Juilliard, but you worked on The Help with. So how was it meeting up with them again in this different context that you also produced for?
And also William Hurt went to Juilliard.
Wow.
So we were like poor McAvoy. He was feeling so left out.
Can I interject? Kieran Hines went to my drama school and started in Glasgow. Even though he's from Northern Ireland, he started in Glasgow acting.
So we had a bit of like, I guess what happens with sports. We were like showing up in our t-shirts. It was great. Jess Wexler and I went to college together, and the teachers put us in every single play together for 4 years. We got to act together, and we're best friends. And then once we graduated college, we haven't been able to act together since, because it's very rare to have many female characters in a movie. And so to do this was fantastic. I love Viola Davis. I just think she's so great, and I loved seeing her in a role where she kind of like is the comic relief of the film, which is great. Also, I know.
Hater had a certain amount of
Yes. I guess the comic relief of Eleanor's film.
Stephen, do you want to ask a question?
Sure. Hi. For the two of you, chemistry, we always hear about these chemistry reads now, and you obviously the two of you are terrific in this movie together. When you go and decide to do a movie, do you both insist on meeting your leading lady, your leading man, and make a decision? Have you ever turned down a movie because you didn't want to work with that person?
The only specification that Jess had was that I shaved my ginger beard off. Otherwise, it was going to be doobly ginge. We met up in London. Jess, you were passing through for like 25 minutes or something like that, and we managed to kind of catch a breakfast together, and that was the only thing we did really. So day one, we sort of bared all, and we incorporated a lot of our own lives into that backstory as well, and we bared a lot of our own lives in that sort of conversation really, and Ned was involved in that too. But so day two, we were quite naked, if you like, artistically. Well, not artistically, but naked, and not actually either. But naked, sort of emotionally, we were able to be very vulnerable with each other, and we were going to have to be in this movie because it was about two people who have been vulnerable around each other their entire relationship and know each other, and really they're the only two people that could say these things to each other,
I've passed on a film before when I didn't think I was going to have very good chemistry with the person, because for me, I put everything off on the other person. I'm such a like reactive actor. My performance is really depending on the other person. So if it's not quite working,
Do I feel that? Well, I just think she was lucky to have me, so that she. Honestly, I really don't think that. I think I know what you're saying. I don't think you're a reactive actor, but I think what I loved about working with you is that I've said before in other movies, you know, your performance can be entirely in the eyes of the person acting with you. It seems to be less about what can I put on this scene that I came in and I'm going to ram into this scene no matter what that guy's going to do or whatever the director wants. It's more about being open and being connected and letting the scene be what it's going to be, and that was just a joy to work with you. So I know what you mean about being reactive, but it's you're like a playing field on which amazing things can happen.
So sweet.
I know it took a while to get it made, and I'm really curious what it was like the first time you actually were able to see both movies, because I imagine the people that, like, you had such a good friend involved and just everything that went into it. I imagine it was really, felt like a child almost. So I'm really curious for both of you what it was like when you first saw it.
Yeah, I had seen the, but you know, I'd seen some stuff on like computer. I'd seen stuff in the editing room, and you know, and I thought it was powerful. But to be honest, the first time I saw it in Toronto with an audience, and it was the first time James saw it at all. That was incredibly emotional for me because I was there with so many people that I loved, and watching them soar, and watching his performance, and it's probably the most moving experience I've ever had in a theater, because of the people that I was with. But one funny thing, because James hadn't seen it yet, he was sitting right behind me, and so I could hear all of his reactions to things. And in the scene where Eleanor goes to the dance club and then she grabs the guy and starts kissing him, I just heard him go, "Oh!"
When you get prime beef. You know what I mean? And the first time I saw the movie was also at Toronto, and I didn't know what to expect really, and I can't remember how I felt about it, to be honest with you. I was just quite bamboozled by the whole thing because it's so. I think that's really emotional what you guys saw tonight, but him and her together are like knock you in your ass really. And I was knocked on my arse. And it's not often that I say that about something I'm in. Certainly not on the first viewing, because it's still very technical to you, and I'm remembering moments that we had, or good times or bad times we had, or what we had for lunch sometimes, you know. But I was knocked on my ass.
And that's a perfect place to end. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight.
Everything seems so limitless.
It still is. You're the star of my life story.